Mysterious death of one of Hollywood's most alluring actresses. Natalie Wood allegedly drowned in 1981, and her death was originally ruled an accident.
More than 4 decades after Natalie Wood's untimely death, questions still swirl around the mysterious night she vanished from the Splendor yacht. How did a beloved Hollywood star, terrified of water?
I've always been terrified, still am, of water, dark water, sea water.
End up drowned in frigid ocean waters? Was it a tragic accident or something far darker hidden beneath the surface? At 95, Robert Wagner broke his silence, offering a haunting reflection on that fateful night.
I went down below and she wasn't there. And the dinghy was gone, and I looked around for her and I didn't know where she was.
What truths could finally emerge from the decades of silence and suspicion? Prepare to dive deep into a story of love, jealousy, and unanswered questions that continue to haunt Hollywood. The night Natalie vanished, November 28, 1981, began as a typical evening for Natalie Wood and Robert Wagner, but it would soon become the darkest night in Hollywood history. The couple was aboard the yacht Splendor, anchored near Catalina Island with close friends, including actor Christopher Walken and Captain Dennis Davern. The group spent the day laughing and enjoying the ocean, seemingly wrapped in the glamour and ease of a private getaway. However, as the night wore on, an uneasy tension crept beneath the surface, foreshadowing tragedy. Natalie Wood had long been terrified of water, a fear rooted in childhood experiences and a near drowning during a film shoot. This made the circumstances of her disappearance all the more perplexing. It was late at night when Natalie quietly slipped away from the yacht in her nightgown and a crimson coat. Her absence was not noticed immediately, but her disappearance ignited a series of urgent and unanswered questions. How and why had she left the safety of the yacht on such a cold, daunting night? A day meant for relaxation quickly turned suspenseful. The initial reports claimed Natalie had fallen while attempting to board the yacht's rubber dinghy, painting a picture of an accidental death. But the details didn't add up. The dinghy was found floating near shore, still tied down with the engine off, and no signs showed it had been used to ferry Natalie away. The body discovered floating face down in the cold sea wore the nightgown and heavy coat of a woman no one believed would willingly take such a risk. Bruises on her arms, scratches on her face, and other marks suggested something more violent than a simple slip. These injuries haunted those who knew her well and fueled endless speculation. Friends and family were surprised and deeply suspicious, unable to reconcile the idea of Natalie calmly drifting off alone to her death. The contrast between her known fears and the circumstances of her disappearance planted seeds of doubt and dread. Witnesses on nearby boats reported hearing a woman's desperate screams piercing the darkness of the night, cries that went unanswered. Even more chilling, one witness described hearing a man's calm response, "Okay, honey, we'll get you." Yet no help arrived, and no one came to her aid. The silence and inaction that followed those cries remain a haunting element of the story, as though the ocean itself swallowed her fate, and the truth alongside her. As dawn broke on November 29th, the calm waters revealed the tragic reality. Natalie Wood's body was found a mile from the Splendor, her closed eyes frozen in eternal sleep. The scene presented a heartbreaking image of vulnerability and disbelief, challenging every assumption and stirring media frenzy. What started as an accident theory began to unravel, replaced by whispers of secrets held tightly beneath the sea's surface. Robert Wagner was the last person seen with Natalie that night, and his accounts of the events shifted over time, deepening the mystery. Initial statements downplayed any serious argument or violence, but the growing evidence suggested an emotional storm had brewed in the cramped yacht cabin. The interactions between Natalie, Robert, and Christopher Walken seemed central to what happened next, but the full picture remained murky and fragmented. Authorities reopened the case multiple times as new testimonies and forensic results complicated the narrative, but nothing emerged that decisively explained how Natalie ended up in the water. The night of November 28th did not simply close with Natalie's death. It opened a chapter of relentless suspicion, grief, and unanswered questions that continue to ripple through Hollywood. One thing was clear. That night held layers of truths and silences, each waiting to be uncovered. And among those layers lay Robert Wagner's story, a reluctant confession wrapped in decades of hesitation and regret. The mystery churned beneath the waves, and its resolution would depend on piecing together fractured memories and hidden emotions. The unfolding drama between Natalie and Robert traces back decades before the night she vanished. The troubled marriage. Natalie Wood and Robert Wagner's relationship was often described as a Hollywood love story, but beneath the surface, it was marked by turbulence and unresolved tension. They first met when Natalie was just 10 years old and Robert 18, a youthful encounter that sparked a lifelong connection. She once whispered to her mother, "I'm going to marry that man," a prophecy that would shape both their lives in unexpected ways. Their 1957 wedding was a glamorous event, celebrated by fans and press alike as the union of Hollywood's golden couple. Natalie, radiant and young, was climbing the heights of stardom, while Wagner was the charming leading man with polished appeal. Yet the pressures of fame and the complexities of their individual careers placed stress on their bond. Natalie's star shone brighter with films like West Side Story, while Wagner faced career struggles that introduced imbalance and some resentment. Behind the scenes, jealousy and control simmered. Robert was known to be protective, sometimes to the point of being possessive, and this strained their relationship. Natalie's ambitions frustrated him, especially as she sought to expand her career and work with other actors, including Christopher Walken on her final film. The cracks deepened with rumors of infidelity and emotional distance, undermining what appeared on the surface as a fairy tale romance. The couple separated in the early 1960s, a shock to the public who had believed in their everlasting love. Their divorce filing in 1962 was a stark moment, revealing the mounting conflicts they had buried beneath public smiles. Yet, despite their separation, the emotional tug between them remained strong. Fate would bring them back together nearly a decade later, hinting that their story was far from over. In 1972, they remarried in a quiet ceremony aboard a yacht off Malibu, a symbolic gesture filled with hope and second chances. They had a daughter, Courtney, and outwardly, their life appeared more peaceful, but beneath the surface, old patterns of jealousy and suspicion lingered. Natalie's career was on the rise again, which rekindled uncertainties and fears within Wagner. Friends often recounted moments where Natalie seemed worn down by the pressures of maintaining both her career and marriage. She sometimes cried backstage, affected by rumors and her husband's controlling tendencies. The emotional toll was evident, even as they tried to present a united front to the world. This tension fractured further during the Splendor yacht trip, when jealousy over Christopher Walken's presence inflamed unresolved issues. Robert's insecurities about Natalie's friendships and professional relationships became sharper. Witnesses hinted at his discomfort growing as the night progressed, culminating in heated arguments. His frustration with her intention to focus on her career and the closeness she shared with Walken fanned the flames. The atmosphere was charged, a volatile mix of love and anger that promised a breaking point. Natalie and Robert's history was a complex weave of affection and conflict, passion and turbulence. Their love had survived separations and reunions, but it was far from perfect. This backstory adds a poignant layer to the events of November 28th, highlighting how personal struggles often hide behind public images. It's a reminder that intense emotions can simmer just beneath the surface, ready to spill over. As shadows from their pasts clouded the present, the night of Natalie's disappearance became much more than a tragic accident. It carried echoes of years of unresolved emotion and buried pain. These tensions set the stage for the unsettling testimonies that would emerge from that fateful night. The voices of witnesses aboard and near the yacht would soon add new shades of complexity to this already tangled portrait. Unsettling witness accounts. Witness testimonies from that night cast a haunting glow over the mystery surrounding Natalie Wood's death. On neighboring boats, people reported hearing desperate screams for help, sharp and urgent, cutting through the silent November night. Two witnesses aboard a nearby vessel called the Capricorn distinctly remembered hearing a woman cry out, "Help me! Someone, please, help me!" The cries lasted nearly 15 minutes, echoing across the dark waters. Despite the clear distress, no immediate rescue followed. One witness recalled turning on her deck light to search for the source in the foggy darkness. Then came a calm, deep male voice responding, "Okay, honey, we'll get you." Yet no engine roared to life. No footsteps rushed to answer. Instead, a heavy silence fell, suffocating and final. The identity of that man's voice remains a chilling, unanswered question. Closer to the yacht, Captain Dennis Davern, who was part of the Splendor's crew, revealed disturbing details years later. He reported that while the night began peacefully, the mood darkened as alcohol was consumed and tension escalated. He described hearing raised voices, a loud thud, and then sudden silence. Most ominously, Davern said Robert Wagner ordered him not to turn on the searchlights or call for help. "Leave her there. Let her learn a lesson," he recalled Wagner saying coldly. Davern's initial statements had been guarded, but he later admitted to lying by omission, pressured by fear and loyalty. His confession reignited the investigation, exposing a possible cover-up and deepening suspicion. He insisted he heard Wagner shouting at Natalie, "Get off my damn boat," during a heated argument. This painted a dark image of conflict aboard the yacht that night. On the other hand, Christopher Walken confirmed there had been tension, but denied any physical altercation. He admitted Natalie expressed frustration over her career and Wagner's disapproval, confirming that arguments did take place. However, his account, like Wagner's, contained gaps and inconsistencies that further muddled the truth. Beyond the immediate crew, a mysterious note surfaced years later, threatening Marilyn Wayne, one of the key witnesses who came forward about the screams. The message warned her to remain silent or face dire consequences. This intimidation only heightened the case's murky and dangerous reputation. Such actions suggested someone wanted secrets kept hidden, no matter the cost. These harrowing accounts contradict the image of a simple accident, revealing a night fraught with anger, fear, and desperation. The presence of witnesses who heard screams and voices contrasts starkly with the delayed response to Natalie's disappearance. The cold silence after those calls for help haunts every retelling. Despite varying stories, the common thread is that something terrible unfolded on the water that night. The voices captured in the darkness hint at struggle, heartbreak, and unanswered cries that have echoed through decades. These testimonies underscore the doubt and suspicion that have never left those who seek the truth. Understanding these unsettling witness accounts is crucial to piecing together the events that led to Natalie Wood's death. The voices from that night still whisper beneath the waves, urging us not to forget what might lie beneath the surface. The conflicting stories from the night deepen as the statements of those involved are examined. Contradictions in statements. From the start, the accounts given by those on the Splendor were clouded by contradictions and evasions, making it difficult to establish a clear story. Robert Wagner, Christopher Walken, and Captain Dennis Davern each provided versions that seemed to shift as new details emerged. Wagner maintained that any argument was minor, insisting Natalie left the cabin calmly and that her disappearance was a tragic accident. Yet, his narrative contained troubling gaps, including why no one saw Natalie leave or how she ended up in the water. Captain Davern's testimony was especially revealing. Initially, he denied hearing anything seriously wrong that night, but years later, he admitted to lying and withholding information. He said he heard Wagner shouting at Natalie, ordering her off the boat, followed by the chilling remark, "Leave her there. Let her learn a lesson." This stark contradiction with Wagner's public account suggested a darker confrontation took place. Davern also said Wagner prevented him from turning on the searchlights and delayed notifying authorities, actions that raised questions about their intent. Christopher Walken confirmed tension existed, acknowledging that Natalie expressed career frustrations and Wagner's jealousy caused friction. However, he denied witnessing any physical violence. Walken remained largely silent in later investigations, maintaining distance from the controversies, which left many wondering what truths he chose not to reveal. The shifting testimonies painted a picture of fractured memories and perhaps deliberate silence. Wagner's story changed over time, contributing to the cloud of uncertainty. He admitted in his memoirs to smashing a wine bottle during that night's argument, a detail not initially shared publicly. This act underscored the intensity of emotion aboard the yacht and hinted at a volatile atmosphere. Investigators noted that the inconsistencies in Wagner's statements eroded his credibility and fueled public suspicion. The discrepancies extended beyond first-hand accounts to small but important details. The time it took to report Natalie missing was unusually long. Nearly 4 hours elapsed before the Coast Guard was alerted. During this critical window, evidence suggests Wagner discouraged crew members from taking action. Witnesses testified that the delay and lack of immediate search efforts likely diminished any chance of rescue. Moreover, the tension between the testimonies of Wagner and Walken deepened the mystery. Walken was candid about a heated discussion over Natalie's career ambitions, but Wagner downplayed the argument's scale. This disagreement amplified perceptions of Wagner's possible motive rooted in jealousy. Friends and acquaintances later confirmed Wagner had a history of controlling behavior and possessiveness, adding weight to suspicions. The police had to navigate these tangled narratives carefully, knowing that conflicting statements could conceal critical truths. The lack of consistent testimony made it nearly impossible to reconstruct exactly what happened in the cabin that night. Despite numerous interviews and questioning, vital questions remained unanswered. These tangled accounts reveal more than confusion. They hint at silence imposed by fear and perhaps guilt. The interplay between what was said, withheld, or altered raises the possibility that the night's true story has never been fully told. Wagner's reluctance to openly discuss the event leaves a shadow that follows every version of the tale. With these contradictions set against the emotional backdrop of the night, physical evidence would later add another layer of complexity, challenging explanations of a simple accident. Beneath the clash of voices and memories, the silent testimony of the body itself emerged, the autopsy and physical evidence. The results of Natalie Wood's autopsy revealed a chilling portrait that did little to clarify how she died, and much to deepen the mystery. The examination showed her blood alcohol level was approximately 0.14%, a state that could cause disorientation, especially on a cold, rough sea. She also had traces of seasickness medication and painkillers in her system, which would have further impaired her balance and awareness that night. These factors suggested she was vulnerable and physically compromised before entering the water. More alarming, however, were the injuries observed on her body. Fresh bruises marked her arms, wrists, and knees, while scratches covered her face and neck. Forensic experts concluded that these wounds occurred before she entered the water, raising the possibility of a struggle. The nature and location of the injuries did not fit well with an accidental fall or slip, as originally reported. These findings cast doubt on the simple accident theory and pointed toward a physical altercation. The positioning of the rubber dinghy offered another puzzling detail. Found near shore, the dinghy's key was still in the ignition, with the engine off and the oars tied down, as if it had never been used. This challenged the claim that Natalie had tried to take the dinghy ashore or use it at all. The evidence suggested she did not leave the yacht by boat under her own power, deepening questions about how she ended up in the water at all. Autopsy reports made clear that drowning was the cause of death, but added that other undetermined factors were involved. This vague classification reflected the persistent uncertainty and the open questions that surrounded the circumstances. The amended death certificate issued years later recognized this ambiguity, changing the official cause from accidental drowning to drowning and undetermined conditions. The bruises and scratches, combined with the toxicology report, suggested a far more complex and possibly violent scenario. If Natalie had been incapacitated or injured before falling into the ocean, could someone have been responsible? The evidence did not conclusively answer that, but it raised uneasy possibilities. This physical testimony contradicted Wagner's initial accounts and the early narrative of a tragic accident. Investigators scrutinized these findings alongside the testimonies, trying to piece together a plausible sequence. How could the visible injuries, the impaired state, and the inexplicable dinghy placement all fit into one coherent story? The absence of clear evidence for a violent crime left police caught between suspicion and insufficient proof. Public opinion was affected strongly by these autopsy details. Fans and friends found it difficult to accept that a woman as cautious and fearful of water as Natalie would simply slip away unnoticed and drown without help. The injuries further suggested she might have fought or been restrained at some point, making the accident explanation deeply unsatisfactory for many. These forensic revelations pushed the investigation into new directions, fueling calls for deeper scrutiny and reopening of the case. But even with advances in forensic science and reopened investigations, the physical evidence refused to offer a final, unambiguous conclusion. Natalie's body spoke volumes, yet kept silent about the crucial moments that ended her life. The materials left behind, bruises, the absence of evidence on the dinghy, and toxicology, left a puzzle that stretched beyond what science alone could solve. It was a haunting reminder that beneath the surface, both the truth and the tragedy remained submerged. From physical proof to shifting stories, the case that once seemed straightforward grew ever more tangled, revealing why some secrets resist the light of day. The police investigation and reopenings. The initial investigation into Natalie Wood's death concluded in 1982 with the ruling of accidental drowning. Authorities accepted the idea that she had slipped or fallen into the water while intoxicated, affirming the tragedy as unintentional. However, questions lingered beneath the surface, and developments in testimony and evidence over the years challenged that early conclusion. Doubts grew, especially as new witnesses and contradicting statements emerged. In 2003, the case was quietly closed, but it would not remain dormant. In 2011, nearly 3 decades after the initial ruling, Captain Dennis Davern broke his silence, dramatically altering the investigation's course. He confessed that he had lied in earlier statements, admitting to hearing a heated argument and claiming Robert Wagner's chilling directive not to turn on searchlights or call for help. DeVern's revelations prompted the Los Angeles Police Department to reopen the case with fresh eyes. The re-examination was further fueled by police receiving reports from witnesses who recalled hearing a woman's desperate cries and a man's calm reply, a testimony that directly contradicted the original narrative. This new evidence and DeVern's testimony led the Los Angeles County Coroner's Office to change Natalie Wood's cause of death from accidental drowning to drowning and other undetermined factors in 2012. This amendment reopened the door to suspicion and called attention back to Wagner's role. In 2018, the investigation took a more pointed direction when Robert Wagner was officially named a person of interest. The Los Angeles Police Department highlighted inconsistencies in his accounts and pointed to bruising on Natalie's body that was consistent with an assault. Lieutenant John Corina emphasized Wagner's position as the last person with Natalie that night, raising serious questions about his involvement or knowledge of what truly transpired. Despite this, Wagner steadfastly denied any wrongdoing through his legal representatives, labeling the allegations as baseless. While police continued their inquiry, Christopher Walken chose to remain silent, maintaining his distance from the public and investigations. The renewed probe cultivated a tense atmosphere, with law enforcement attempting to piece together decades-old clues amid countless rumors and conflicting memories. Two new witnesses emerged, adding further complexity. One reported hearing shouting and screaming from the Splendor's cabin, while another described Wagner's past violent behavior toward Natalie. These statements added depth to the suspicions surrounding him, but fell short of delivering irrefutable proof. No conclusive physical evidence ever surfaced that directly implicated Wagner in Natalie's death. In 2022, after years of scrutiny, Wagner was cleared of suspicion due to insufficient evidence to charge him with any crime. Nonetheless, the case technically remained open, an unresolved mystery hanging over Hollywood's collective conscience. The public was left with more questions than answers, and decades of investigation had still failed to close the darkest chapter in Natalie Wood's story. Then, in 2024, the case was once again reignited by two new witnesses: a 17-year-old fisherman who claimed to have heard Natalie's cries that night, and a former colleague who spoke of Wagner's rough handling of her in the 1960s. The resurfacing of these voices demonstrated that the echoes of that night continued to ripple decades later, challenging any settling of the waters. While police investigations weave slowly, the court of public opinion never ceased. The spotlight on Wagner remained fixed, his name synonymous with scandal, suspicion, and the persistent search for truth that refused to fade with time. The investigation's twists and turns show just how elusive justice can be when shrouded by decades of silence and secrets. With the official focus returning to Wagner, the reactions from family and the public would add new emotional layers to this enduring tragedy. Public and private voices now clashed over what justice truly meant. Family and public reaction. The death of Natalie Wood sparked not only legal inquiries, but deep and lasting rifts within her family and the public's imagination. Natalie's younger sister, Lana Wood, became one of the most vocal figures demanding answers. For decades, Lana insisted that Robert Wagner knew far more than he admitted. Her persistent declarations, "I believe Robert killed my sister," cut through Hollywood's enforced silence and challenged the official narratives. Lana viewed Wagner's refusal to cooperate fully with investigations as the ultimate sign of guilt. From 2011 through 2018, each attempt by police to get Wagner to share details was met with silence or vague denials in her eyes. She contrasted an innocent person's fight to prove innocence with what she saw as a guilty man's instinct to hide. For Lana, the question remained painful and clear. If Wagner truly loved Natalie, why did he keep silent? This revelation of silence came into sharper focus when Lana shared how Captain Dennis Davern confessed to her that he had lied to protect Wagner. Davern told her about the violent argument he overheard between Natalie and Wagner, the loud banging sounds, and the chilling order not to turn on the lights or notify anyone. For Lana, this confession confirmed years of suspicion and grief. Lana also emphasized Natalie's deep fear of water, a trauma she carried lifelong after near drowning as a child on a movie set. Lana adamantly rejected the accident theory, calling it a betrayal of her sister's intelligence and caution. To Lana, the idea that Natalie would suddenly and quietly enter a dinghy at night in freezing conditions was unthinkable. Her conviction gave a voice to countless fans and observers who found it impossible to accept the official versions. On the other side, Natalie's daughter, Natasha Gregson Wagner, offered a strikingly different perspective. Natasha believed her father loved her mother deeply and firmly stated that whatever happened was a tragic accident, not a crime. She portrayed Robert Wagner as a man overwhelmed by sorrow, haunted silently by the loss he could neither understand nor explain. Her defense complicated the narrative, showing that even within the family, grief had many faces. Natasha also described Wagner's withdrawal from the public and his personal struggles. He avoided the ocean and grew quiet around Natalie's photographs, consumed by a sadness so tangible it affected everyone around him. His private pain reflected a man living with loss and regret, not as a perpetrator, but as a mourner. This vision touched many who saw beyond public suspicion to human grief. Friends and colleagues described Wagner in his later years as fragile but peaceful, finding solace in memories of Natalie and moments with his grandchildren. In private writings, he confessed that not a single day passed without thinking of her, her smile, her laughter, and her vibrant spirit. Natalie's presence seemed to follow him, an ever-present compass in a world that suddenly felt cold and vast. The tug-of-war between Lana's relentless demand for justice and Natasha's protective love for Wagner captured the ongoing emotional complexity. It revealed a family torn between fighting for truth and preserving memory, between anger and forgiveness. This tension resonated deeply with fans and the public, who grappled with their own feelings about the tragedy. At the heart of the story remains a truth no one can fully claim. A luminous star lost too soon, a husband encased in silence and suspicion, and a family forever changed. The public reaction reflects the broader human struggle to find meaning in loss and unanswered questions, marking the lasting legacy of Natalie Wood's life and death. From these wounds and divisions, the final reflections of Robert Wagner would soon emerge, offering a final glimpse into the man forever linked to Natalie's story. Wagner's final words. In his final years, Robert Wagner spoke more openly about the night that had haunted him for over 40 years. At 95, his reflections were filled with sorrow and regret. His trembling voice carried the weight of unanswered questions and public suspicion. He admitted that the evening had unraveled amid drinking and jealousy, acknowledging heated arguments with Natalie Wood over her friendship with Christopher Walken and her career. "When she walked away, I thought she just needed time," he said, his uncertainty by offering a glimpse into enduring guilt. Wagner recalled the horror of realizing Natalie was missing, searching the yacht in disbelief before noticing the dinghy was gone. Hours passed before she was reported missing, a delay that fueled lasting controversy. In his memoir, Pieces of My Heart, he wrote, "Not a day goes by that I don't think of Natalie." Yet skepticism persisted as contradictions shadowed his account. Haunted by what-ifs, Wagner carried a lifelong burden of remorse. Those close to him described a man humbled and hollowed by grief, finding solace only in family. His daughter, Natasha, defended him as loving but broken, consumed by loss rather than guilt. Wagner's final reflections revealed not confession, but the heavy truth of a man forever haunted by love and tragedy. The story of Natalie Wood's death is a tangled web of love, suspicion, and unanswered questions that have spanned decades. Robert Wagner's reflections reveal a man burdened by regret. But the full truth remains elusive. If you found this story compelling, please like this video and subscribe for more deep dives into Hollywood's most enduring mysteries.